Welcome again, everyone. Delighted to be part of this session. My name is Natalia Kucirkova, and I work at the International Center for EdTech Impact. And today I'll be sharing with you the work we have been doing with colleagues in relation to evidence building and some consolidated benchmarking in the space. The reason that we are doing this work is really the problem that we see in the EdTech community, and that is that there is a misbalance between how much is spent on EdTech and how much evidence we have about EdTech's actual added value in education. And this is something that has been quite widely reported by researchers, but also by the GEM UNESCO report in 2023, that recognize that there is a missed opportunity when it comes to EdTech addressing the learning crisis that we are facing not only in the global north, but also in the global south, or not only in the global south, but also in the global north, depending on where you are. It is a global crisis. And we need well-designed and well-implemented EdTech that can actually enhance early literacy and numeracy skills, not only promise to do so. So how do we go about this? How do we ensure that we have more EdTech that are designed with evidence in mind so that they can genuinely improve the learning benefits of young children? One important caveat here, or the sounding alarm that came from the GEM report, was that we need to ensure that the evidence is independent, that we don't have claims that are not backed up by researchers or independent groups. A lot of the current evidence in terms of impact that EdTech tools have is essentially from the providers themselves rather than being independent evaluations. This slide is taken from the report, and you see also that UNESCO is very clear about the need to ensure the evidence building being done in an ongoing manner, so that as the technology is evolving, so we are evolving our evidence portfolios of the individual technologies. So it's an ongoing process, a continuous way of improving the tools in relation to research and evidence that comes to light. So how do we know what actually works? How can we have this rigorous and holistic evaluation? We do know that the market is saturated. There are more than 500,000 educational apps, and you see it's in quotation marks because not everything that is labeled as educational truly is educational. And we also know that there are about 10,000 EdTech tools that are available globally. So how do we actually sort this out? How do we select tools that do genuinely enhance children's learning and well-being? And also, how do we make sure that they positively contribute to our local communities so that we have the local innovation coming from our entrepreneurs? Well, these are the questions that we have been asking as researchers, but also policymakers, some leaders in the EdTech community as well, some EdTech founders. And we came to the conclusion that we need some guidance that acknowledges that many EdTech tools, or all of EdTech tools, are different. They differ from each other, but they can be judged or evaluated through a shared framework. We also recognize that there are many frameworks that already exist. Indeed, a review of these frameworks that was commissioned by the Department for Education back in 2024. I was part of the committee. We found 74 different frameworks to evaluate EdTech. So we recognized as a field that we need to consolidate and harmonize existing frameworks. And that consolidation has been happening over the past 3 years as a research consortium of various scholars and academic scientists. We came together and reviewed systematically the different frameworks and different criteria and rubrics that have been put together from the inception of evaluation research until now. And what it led to were these 5 different reports that are freely available, open access from the University of Stavanger, and that summarize the individual frameworks in relation to 5 different categories. And these 5 different categories are the 5 E's framework that I want you to become familiar with today. So the 5 E's framework is essentially built on the 5 elements you see listed here. The first one talks about efficacy as being the important way of evaluating evidence. The second one is effectiveness. Third one, equity. Then we have ethics and environment. And as you see, all of them correspond to the SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals. And they all correspond to each other or are mutually influencing each other. And the reason that I'm emphasizing this influence is that you cannot really be thinking about ethical solution without also thinking about its efficacy and equity and so on. If you imagine an AI tool, and we have many AI tools very popular these days, we ask many ethical questions in relation to them. You know, what is happening to students' data, and are they secure? Are they really going to protect privacy of individual students? But these ethical questions only make sense if we know that these AI tools actually work for education. So the outcomes that we can get through efficacy and effectiveness are equally important as the ethical question. And by the same token, we need to know that these tools work for all students in the classroom. So who does the solution work for? The equity question is equally important. And finally, environment, a question that is often perhaps underestimated in terms of, is the solution sustainable? Can the solution be used in a sustainable manner so that we can really ensure that we are using tools that protect our planet? So the 5E's framework is built on this consolidated research effort, and it's also displayed here in a sort of different way. If you can think about it as a list of questions, then you can be basically following the mutual influence of these questions here. And we have digested these questions into a set of rubrics and criteria that have been then further refined with different stakeholders, including teachers, policymakers, and investors. We also had some EdTech investors and VCs who contributed to the final set of criteria, because we wanted to make sure that they are going to be proportionate, so that they allow for an equal competition, if you like, in terms of evidence, both for the startup companies as well as for the mature companies, so that we can have the local innovation happening and at the same time also acknowledge that a lot of good work already exists. I also want to emphasize that the 5E's framework corresponds to the major effort that UNESCO was involved in when putting together this system transformation framework that you may be familiar with, that essentially is looking at the infrastructural level of implementing EdTech. And there is a lot of correspondence between the individual elements within the UNESCO framework and the 5E's, because precisely we wanted to ensure that as we are evaluating EdTech tools globally, we have this correspondence and we are speaking the same language when it comes to speaking to governments, as well as providers, as well as teachers and policymakers. And the 5E's framework was adopted by EduEvidence, which is the umbrella organization and international organization that certifies EdTech tools. They do that in relation to the 5E's and in relation to individual certifications that have been already provided by what they call these approved certification providers. So essentially, if you have a solution that has already been certified by another provider, and that provider aligns with the criteria of the edu evidence of edu evidence, then you can be automatically recertified. So this is why it's called the certification of certifications. We have more about edu evidence, and Kwame will take that piece. So I just wanted to actually thank my colleagues at the Edu Evidence Academic Advisory Board. We have been working together in building the system for evaluation. It has been also summarized as 2 research articles together with colleagues like Professor Pitchford, who is part of this call today. And we also have a wonderful non-academic advisory board at Edu Evidence that Kwame is part of. So Kwame, I'll pass on the baton to you now if you would like to go next.